All right, guys, just want to welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today I'll be doing my 5 best bets for Week 4 of college football. Getting things started, we go down to Los Angeles, USC, and Michigan State. I'm going to go with a full game over 56.5. This total has hit 2 out of 3 times this year for USC. Last week against Purdue just came up just shy of that mark. But that one seemed doomed from the start as they, had a 3-hour weather delay after traveling out east for the first time in a long time for the Trojans. So that one, again, it seemed doomed. So now we're going to head back. Normal start time for LA, 11 p.m. Eastern time. Certainly kind of late, especially even for Michigan State. But USC, this is still a highly explosive offense. They've been very productive. The starters have been getting them some good minutes, especially in these first halves. They've been able to run the football as well. And just the explosive factor of the SC offense should lead to them being able to put up at least 35 points of their own. And a lot of USC games typically end up, having final scores of 45-20 if they're blowouts, and of course 45 something else if they're closer. For Michigan State, this is a team that just played at home, Boston College, a couple of weeks ago, and they gave up 390 yards through the air and 4 touchdowns. Now they face arguably the top 1-2 punch in the country in Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. And the Boston College passing attack should not be putting up numbers like that against anybody. So I think for MSU, it really shows, how poor the Spartans defense, at least in the secondary, is, despite being 3-0. That's, pretty ridiculous. I think for Michigan State, though, they can put up some of their own points to do, their part in hitting this over. Aiden Childs, not a bad quarterback. He's a dual threat guy. I like what they have in their receiving game as well. Nick Marsh and Amari Kelly, I think, are incredibly talented players going up against the USC defense that has been creating a lot of turnovers and a lot of sacks. But in terms of their secondary being able to cover, that's been a very inconsistent part for this football team. So I think Michigan State can definitely put up some points. I think the line in this one's about 17, 18.5. No play on that one. I'm really not even sure if USC would cover that one. But I think what you saw from the Michigan State defense just a couple weeks ago against a significantly weaker offense that just got curbed by Stanford, I think that Michigan State's probably in for a tough afternoon, but I don't think the USC is going to be shutting them out by any means, and I think Michigan State can score 14 to 21 points minimum. So the over full game, 56.5, is a great way to get this episode started. Now we're going to move down to the Apple Cup in Pullman, Washington and Washington State. Washington State's coming off a brutal loss to North Texas, 59-10. Now they're going to come back home and face their rival that is surging at the moment. For Washington State, though, this is a game where they had 5 turnovers, gave North Texas an incredible amount of short fields. They scored touchdowns on all of those turnovers, and I don't think that's going to be the case regularly for Washington State. I wouldn't think, where you're going to be doing that and giving up that many free points to your opposition, because now this is a rivalry game. Your offense has not been that strong to start the season. Against Idaho week 1, it was pretty poor. Bounced back against San Diego State for almost 400 yards. I think Jackson Potter is a solid player. He's going out there and he's playing hard. This guy's got 604 yards through the air and 4 touchdowns, a couple of interceptions. That's certainly a problem. The rushing attack for Washington State seems non-existent. And I'm certainly, outside of Josh Meredith, questioning these pass catchers and these weapons. But I think this is a defense that hasn't been abysmal because, again, they were put in so many bad positions. That's why they ended up giving up so many points last week. Only ended up giving up 400 yards of offense, which you would think would have been a lot more considering they gave up a near 60 burger. And I'm a big fan of Washington. I think this offense led by Damon Williams, Jonah Coleman, and Denzel Boston is one of the more underrated ones in the country. But for Washington, you're going on the road in a rivalry game. Ohio State, you play them a week from Saturday at home in a game that is potentially winnable for you. So I think maybe a bit of a look-ahead game here for the Huskies. I think you can see their offense struggle a little bit, and I don't know how the Cougars are really going to generate much offense, but I don't think it's a perfect defense by any means for the Huskies, who gave up 21 points to Colorado State week 1. And then UCA Davis, they blew them out by 60-plus points. They played really well in that one. So I think for Washington, this will be a little bit tougher of a game for their defense. Some cakewalk opponents to get things started. They're still molding in a lot of new starters. For Washington State, though, 20.5. I mean, getting 3 touchdowns here. As long as we don't turn the ball over, right, I think they can keep this one a little bit closer. So I think Washington State to cover is a pretty respectable bet, mainly just because they're at home. And I think for Washington, you're playing Ohio State next week, maybe a bit of a look-ahead opportunity. You just saw what happened with Pitt and West Virginia this past week, and a very bad West Virginia team was able to knock off Pitt in overtime. So that's going to play into my thesis here. Now we're going to go down to Waco. Baylor hosting Arizona State, 2.5-point favorites. Total on this one's also 60.5. I think for Arizona State, this is a team that's being a little bit disrespected. I went ahead and broke this game down in full already on the channel. It's going to add a lot of opinion and a lot of reasons why I think Arizona State's going to come away with a victory. But long story short, I just think that they're going to dominate the Baylor defense on the ground. This is a team, Arizona State, that they struggled in that first half against Mississippi State, put themselves in a hole, battled back incredibly hard with the defense really tightened up. Ended up giving up that touchdown on the final drive, unfortunately, but they were balling out. I think their run defense is great. Baylor, they've operated very well this year as a one-dimensional offense, though. Their passing attack has really been lighting it up. Sawyer Robertson leading the nation in passing. This guy's been tremendous. He's had a deep group of pass catchers as well. But I think overall, Arizona State has the components to handle it. I think their secondary has been playing some inconsistent ball, but they're capable of, I think, at least holding them in check for under 400 yards, and that's pretty much what they're averaging at this moment in time. I think for Arizona State, I was shocked to see their rushing attack really come around. Relic Brown and Kanye Udo, these guys really took over against Mississippi State. Sam Levitt, he's been doing some work with his legs as well. They've put up 240-plus rushing in back-to-back weeks now. And the Baylor defense is just no good, and I think the consensus is they're probably not going to improve much this year. The defensive line's not all that talented. Secondary can't really cover. I don't think they're going to be able to defend Jordan Tyson at all. So, good value here. I think Arizona State's being disrespected, plus 110 on the money line just because they lost to Mississippi State, and they haven't been blowing out their, lower-tier opponents. But they never really do that, right? The Sun Devils as a program have never been the one that really just light it up against weaker-tier opponents. Just a couple of years ago, for example, they beat Southern Utah by 3 points. So, I think that ASU being undervalued here on the road, 2.5-point dogs. I'm going to take them outright to win this game. Just because I think they'll have more sustainable balance. I think they'll come up with some of those fourth down stops for, against that Baylor offense that loves to gamble. Going to another game here, an interesting one, North Texas and Army. This game's really exciting, right? And I know a lot of people might not find it to be all that entertaining, but I think when you look from a betting perspective, last year these two teams faced down in Texas, and I picked Mean Green to win, and they ended up losing 14-3 despite having a veteran explosive offense that put up 37 plus in like 5 straight games before they faced Army. And they went back to having, nice scoring efforts too, the following weeks after. So it was weird to see North Texas really put in check by Army's defense last year. I think this group this season, led by Drew Mestemaker, I think is going to be a phenomenal quarterback as his career goes on. They've had new wide receivers really step up, Wyatt Young and Miles Coleman heading the charge, and then Mackenzie McGill, the leader in the backfield. So North Texas off to a great start this year, 3-0 against Western Michigan, though. That was a shootout they barely won. In Washington State, they really benefited from a lot of turnovers in that game. Now, you look at Army, a team that lost to Tarleton State, turned around this past, in, week 2 and beat Kansas State because they're coming off a bye week. They had 70 attempts for 237, which is not all that ideal for running the football, but they had 40 minutes of possession time. And I think Keel Helams at quarterback, I think this is the guy they're going to continue to rock with. He's been great as a rusher. He's been really molding into shape as a leader. Noah Short's a nice running back. The passing game was really working against Kansas State as well for a couple of conversions. They had 8 completions in exactly both games so far to start the year, so they've been getting a little bit of balance out of their offense, and I think time of possession is just going to be dominated here. I don't think North Texas is really going to have the bodies to slow down this offense, and I know they started the year solid, I guess, against the run, but Western Michigan was able to kind of piece them up. That was a high-volume rushing attack. They ran the ball 57 times just to eclipse 200 yards, and I think you're going to see them just get worn down in this game. And even though there's some veterans on this defense, I just don't think North Texas is going to have the horses to slow down Army. So I think at home, they're also underdogs, slight, plus 115. I think they're going to get the job done as well. So I like Army as one of my best bets this weekend, even with that Tarleton State loss early on. I'm going to put it behind us. It happened a couple of weeks ago now at this point. I think Army is really settling in. A lot of momentum back after beating Kansas State. And then the final one we're going to look at, full game over, 62.5 in the Arkansas-Memphis contest. Talon Green has been putting on clinics left and right to start the season. 13 total touchdowns, leads the nation in offense, almost 1,200 total yards. This is a team that I think a lot of people expected to be great on offense this year, but man, they've been really darn good. They've been showcasing balance as well. Mike Washington emerging as an explosive back. Braylon Russell, kind of that change of pace guy with a lot more size you can use in the red zone. At wide receiver, some of the transfers they have coming over have been great. They got 4 guys at over 100 yards so far through a couple of games. For Arkansas, I don't know if this defense can be all that great. I mean, Trinidad Chambliss, a backup for Ole Miss, in his first FBS start, tore them apart through the air. 357 yards. I think the top corner, Kaniah Walker, is probably going to be out for this game as well. Now, I don't exactly think that Memphis, with Brendan Lewis, is going to have the greatest offense this year. I don't think he's all that good of a quarterback. I know he's really improved, and I think he's going to continue to do so. And he's off to a solid start. I just think I've seen way too many inconsistencies when it comes to his accuracy, and they're going to have to be throwing the football a lot to try and keep up in this contest because Arkansas's run defense is pretty darn good. I think Sutton Smith and Lewis, though, they're going to be able to find some production, maybe in the red zone as well, to be able to get things going. But for Memphis, I don't know if they're going to be able to win this game in terms of, competing with Arkansas on a drive-for-drive type level. So I think Arkansas, they're going to be able to create some distance, and I think Memphis will be playing from behind. That's kind of what you want to see, I think, to hit this over 62.5. I think it makes a lot of sense for me. I also picked Arkansas to cover. I'm not labeling that as one of my best bets, but I definitely think that's more likely to happen than for Memphis to contend in this one. I think they'll be playing from behind. Cortez Braham, Jamari Hawkins, those guys will put up some numbers as well. I'm feeling like a 45-24 type game, and we're easily going to hit that over. Arkansas, those are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. It's possible Memphis wins via blowout, I guess, right? I think that's pretty low probability, but I think either way you look at it, one of these offenses is going to be able to, get out to a head start, and the other one's going to be forced to play from behind. I think they'll have success doing that. So this is going to be a pretty easy bet for me. 62.5, full game over from Memphis. That's going to be it for this episode. If you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.